Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this next session here on the Get Listing Summit. In this session, we are joined by Jacqui Bowman. Her website is jacquibowman.com. Jacqui is spelled Jacqui, Bowman, Bowman, for those who are listening. Those of you who are watching, there's a link to it below this video, along with a free gift from Jacqui that I'll ask her to talk a little bit about later on in our time together here today. It's a little workbook bundle on clarity and confidence that I think you'll absolutely enjoy. Jacqui is joining us here today to talk about fundamentally, when she and I were connected by Hank, to talk about really mindset, right? And having clarity in the different areas of your life, okay? And then believing that you actually deserve what it is that you want, right? Believing that you can actually have what it is that you want. I've gone through this a lot in my life, and I don't know if you have too, but where you set a goal for something and you start going after it, but do you really believe that you deserve it? I know that many times in my life, I have set a goal for something that I thought I wanted, but I never, looking back, like if I were honest with myself, I could admit that I didn't believe I deserved to have it. In fact, if I was to be honest, there's things in my life I want right now that I don't believe that I deserve to get, weirdly enough, but I'm working hard to get them. So maybe we'll do a little bit of an experimentation of work on me in today's interview, but that's what Jacqui's here to talk to us about today. So I'm really excited to have her on the summit because I know that for a lot of you guys, goals are a big part of being a real estate agent. Going after goals is a big part of being a real estate agent and a self-employed entrepreneur. Mindset, though, if your brain is any way sabotaging or misaligned with what it is that you're trying to get after, you're just always going to run into friction, sabotage yourself. Something's going to always fall apart. And I can be the first one to raise my hand and say I'm a person who's experienced that many times in my life. So I'm really excited to dig into this with Jacqui today. Jacqui, welcome to the Get Listing Summit.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. And mindset, I feel like anytime agents set goals or anybody sets goals, it's one of those things that if you don't really have clarity and mindset behind them, they're just not going to get done. You know, it's just one of those things where I think that when we get true clarity and true belief that we can have those things, it's much easier for us to do them. But I'm excited to talk about the why of why we set certain things as our goals. Because I find a lot of times there's either agents that don't set goals at all, or they're agents that set goals and they set those goals based on what they think they want in life and instead of what they truly want, and getting clarity on what that true thing really is. So
well, let's talk about that because I do, as you know, I do the Miracle Morning every day. And my current reading is the Tony Robbins book, Awaken the Giant Within. I don't know if you're a fan or not, but that's my current reading in the morning until I go through that. And then, another book and another book. But I'm in this section actually this morning where he's talking about the fact that a lot of people want a better life, but they don't set goals that are juicy and big and exciting enough to motivate action. And the idea is that puny goals will not inspire action. Now, what's interesting is that even as I'm reading that this morning, I'm excited. I like the idea of having big goals, but I have found that in my life, focusing on the daily progress and focusing on like winning on a weekly basis, even in small ways, seem to create more progress in life than necessarily just having big, huge goals. And I've been the guy that wrote out like, I want a horse ranch with 50 horses and I want this and that. Still don't have the horse ranch with the 50 horses, but I have come farther. I have come a long ways in the last 5-10 years. Right. So I'm curious when it comes to setting goals, what's your thoughts on, the size of the goals or how to set them? And like you're saying, why are we setting those goals? Are they ours, or is it because that's what we read in a magazine or see on TV as the ideal lifestyle? So let's dig into all that. Where should we start?
Can we work on you for a little bit?
Let's do it. Okay, no, great. I'm totally open to it. This is honestly the best way. Let's work on me.
So tell me more about the ranch, because that is kind of a large goal that obviously needs to be funded through smaller goals. And a lot of times we are after experiences. And so is there a way to have you currently have that experience without actually having the ranch? Like, do you ride horses often now, or are you saving that as a big end all goal?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I don't ride horses a lot now. I used to ride a lot more back in the day. I have permanent scars from it, which I think is cool and fun.
Right.
Yeah, I don't ride a lot of horses now. I think when I think about a ranch, what I really envision is being able to, so I have three younger brothers. And so for me, what's really important is for my brothers to be proud of me as their oldest brother. So something's very important to me for whatever reason. I want my parents to be proud of me too, but especially my younger brothers. So I always envision being able to have like my brothers come out with their families to a family ranch, almost make it like a family thing. I think a part of it too is like creating this feeling of like permanence or significance for the family in general, if that makes sense. Not just for me and like money in the bank account, but I want to be able to do things with my money where it makes everybody in my immediate family feel like we're making progress generationally, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
I love it.
And I want to be able to host things. I want to be able to have I want to have speakers who are on this summit. I want to be able to have them come to this gorgeous home where I could have a retreat and they could come and experience just an amazing time and use that to recharge or to laugh, to live, whatever. Anyway, that's kind of what I want it for, for impact like that. And I just thought that a ranch with a lot of horses is the perfect setting for it.
That's cool. So, and as you can see, what I heard at first was horses. But the real true clarity of what you want is the feeling that you're a provider of a place where people exchange energy paused around something you've created, right?
Yeah.
So taking that, there is an exercise, like I said, I'll share a little bit later, but it's a little bit of a brainstorm to where you can say, okay, I've dialed down on what I really want. What are all the different ways that I could get that experience or get me to that experience? And what we do with getting that clarity is it at least shows us where we're going, and that helps us make the everyday micro decisions in that direction, right? So just kind of building on that. But I love that you have the big goal, and a lot of times you'll hear people say, okay, take that big goal and then break it down. Where do you need to be in 5 years? Where do you need to be in 3 years? Where do you need... And that's where I love the 12-week year. It's over here.
Yep.
That comes in because just like you said, you find progress in your weekly activities that slowly build, and you're getting progress through that. A lot of times I find that people I talk to, they're just doing activities to get better in their field. So we're talking about real estate, right? All of our brokers tell us, go door knocking, go cold calling, go do this, go do this. This is what you should be doing. And what we do is we just say to ourselves, well, if we're better than we were yesterday, we must be doing the right thing. We must be on the right path. And a lot of times I just find that I know that for myself, I thought I was on the right path and I wasn't. And when I say that, I've been licensed for 15 years, and back in 2005, started full-time in real estate and quickly became a top agent in my market, even as a single mom, because I was listening to all of these different things that worked. But I was lying to myself. My audio wasn't matching video. I kept saying I was doing this for my family, right? You're doing what you're doing to get that ultimate big why of your experience of bringing people together in an energy around you. So I would say I was doing this all for my family, but I wouldn't see my kids for days sometimes because my mom was taking care of them. I was a single mom. So a lot of times we think we're doing the right thing, but unless we have that clarity of what we're really doing this for, we're making micro decisions every day that really aren't in alignment with where we're going. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
So that is my experience that I have, that now for the past 5 years, it's like I love helping agents not only increase their business, but also get clarity on where they're going and get happiness today, and not making that something that is so far out. Like, well, once I get this many sales, then I'll have my shit together.
Right.
Right. And that is just never ending. I mean, you can talk to top agents who said they're going to get their shit together and they've been in the business for 25 years. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
you know, so for me, I think a lot of the drivers in this business, it's getting that clarity takes time with yourself. And I just think that we avoid that. So that's my passion, is to help people get into that.
So how does one start getting into that? So is it where you look at the goals that you've set for yourself? Like for me, for example, it might be the ranch. But then you start asking yourself, why do I want that? Is that the first step?
Yes. So that would be clarity? The first step of like, why do I want that? Is it really the ranch that I want? Or is that the perfect setting, I think, for what I really want?
Now, why does that help though in your business, in your life now, right? Like, why does that actually help to get the distinction that I see the ranch as a vehicle for fulfilling this thing, but this experience is really ultimately what I want? Is it because now you can try to create that experience in a setting that doesn't require purchasing a ranch? Why is it important to have that kind of clarity on the why?
Right. So when you do the brainstorm on that, you might find that there's 10 different ways that you can gain that same experience. Mm-hmm. But right now you've identified it's a symbol, it's a ranch, it's horses. It'll probably take me till this amount of time to get to there.
Right.
But when you do the brainstorm, you can have micro experiences today that might lead you to a different path at some point. And so what I find is we hold this big goal way up here that's so far out, and we don't dive into the clarity of the why soon enough. Mm-hmm. And it affects our micro decisions. Like we still put that off. So in everyday business, I would say for you that those experiences with your brothers and your family, do you have opportunities now that you could do those types of experiences?
Right.
Like, for example, I had an agent that he wanted to own a yacht. It's like, well, okay, could you rent a yacht for a day and a half and take your family on the yacht?
Right.
You could, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. But I think too that it's not only getting the clarity on it, but understanding that with your goals, making sure that they're attainable, right? Like, do you have the capacity to get what you want? And then if you know you have the capacity, you believe in yourself that you can do it, why are we not there? That's because we're contaminated with stuff. So I kind of wrote this down I used to be a preschool teacher, by the way.
Okay.
So clarity equals capacity, subtract contamination. And
okay.
I will give credit where credit's due. This came from John Kitchens. If you know John Kitchens, he's a coach. And he shared this with me literally 30 days ago, not even. And it kind of just put a bow around everything I believe in. And I dove into it much deeper than what he presented. But, the capacity is how you are the day before vacation. Like, mm-hmm. Mentally, especially the achievers that are watching this, you all are educating yourself. The day before vacation, what you're capable of. And Mel Robbins says that too. Like, you're on full on, I got to get through this list of 43 things before I get on the plane. And the capacity that you have to work is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. So it's understanding your skill set and understanding your capacity. And then it's like, well, what's my contamination? What are my distractions? What is the bullshit we tell ourselves in our head of why we can't do it? Just negative mindset, our cell phones for sure. I mean, they're made for convenience, but they're also contamination, right?
In the form of distraction.
Right. So just kind of getting into all of that. But, ultimately getting clarity, I also call that vision, because mm-hmm. you have a vision of what you think it'll look like. And it's like, how do we just explore and spend more time there of, okay, what is it that I really want? And I deserve that. And how can I get there sooner? And is the ranch my only path? And if it is the path that you want, that's great. But I think too, just making micro decisions every day and saying, okay, if this type of experience is what I really, really, really want, why am I waiting until I get to a certain point before I start plugging in experiences like that, or get me on that path?
Do you think that we might sometimes set a large goal that's a symbol that represents what we truly want, like me with the ranch, do you think that we set large goals like that are not attainable in the next, typically not attainable in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, or even 5 years? Do you think we set them that way because fundamentally we don't believe that we deserve to have that experience? And so if I set it big like that, it's this mind trick where I'm telling myself I'm a good person because I've set this really good goal, but then I'm also feeding my lack of self-belief and self-doubt by making it something that's probably not realistically attainable. Do we do,
Well, let me ask you
the
this.
ranch isn't the only thing I want that's big. There's bigger
Right.
things. Right?
Well, let me ask you this. So let's just say we did the brainstorm and it really was the ranch being part of that experience.
Okay.
And we say to ourselves, okay, what could we do in the next 12 weeks that would bring us closer to that?
To the actual experience, or to facilitating an increase in income that would make it more realistic?
I would say the experience.
The experience?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What could we do? Well, I could try to organize a trip for my brothers and I where I pay for everything, and like we go to like a boys trip to Wyoming or Colorado, somewhere on the lake in a cabin, something like that. An outdoors setting.
Mm-hmm.
Could probably make that happen. I don't know if the next 12 weeks, but I could certainly put on the books and schedule and pay for most everything in the next 12 weeks, and then have it scheduled for something. So that's possible. I could try to facilitate a meeting with some of the speakers on my summit in a local city, just saying, hey, if anybody wants to come out and meet up, let's get together. I don't have the budget to pay for everything, but I'm sure people can pay their way. But I do have this big thing about wanting to be a provider, be able to pay for things for people. I like doing that. Brings me a lot of joy. But yeah, those are two things that I guess I could do on a much smaller scale.
So let's just forward a little bit. So in the next 12 weeks, you've created a date for when you and your brothers are going to go on this trip.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's just say over the next 4 months, you all go on this trip.
Mm-hmm.
And while you're there, you're getting that feeling of what you really want.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a little bit more believable for you now?
It is.
Right. So
it makes it getting to the experience feel like it can happen a lot sooner, which is fun. It's exciting to think about that. Yeah.
So what if you had these experiences and they weren't, and I'm not trying to talk you out of a ranch. I'm just saying,
no, I don't think you
weren't
are.
at a ranch. And like, say you did this once a year in some totally different place, would you still be fulfilling that experience? And is that more reachable? So I think us getting into how can we get clarity on the 3 or 4 major things we're going after,
mm-hmm.
brainstorm the real reasons behind that, and then saying, okay, what in the next 12 weeks is a small thing that I could do that'll bring me closer to that, instead of just being so income focused that I lose sight of why I'm here and what I'm doing. Because what I found I did was I lost sight of my kids because I said I was doing this all for them.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be able to pay for my daughter's college. I mean, she's 8 years old. I'm like, I have to grow this business as a single mom. These are the sacrifices I need to make, right?
Right.
And I was so contaminated by being responsive because my brokers told me I had to be responsive, because Zillow's telling me to be responsive, and I have to be at everyone's beck and call. And I treated everyone else in the world more important than I treated my kids. And I can never get those years back. I mean, my daughter's 17 now, and I've had these conversations with her. Like, I was not the mom that I could have been because I thought this is what I needed to do. And I don't want other agents to have that, have that experience. So, and she's 17 now and she gets it. I said, so now I am here, which I think maybe it's more important I'm here now when she's 17 than when she was 6. But at the same time, it's one of those things that you can't get back. And I feel like I would have been just as successful with some standards, clarity on what my values are, what my standards are, why I'm doing this, believing in myself that I'm allowed to have standards. Like, even though my broker says I have to be a certain way and Zillow says I have to be a certain way to be successful, like cutting through that and realizing that and believing that people will still work with you with standards, right? So kind of getting clarity on that sooner, instead of me saying, well, when I make it, then I'll respect my standards and spend time with my family.
It's kind of like the chicken and the egg conversation, right? But also, like what I'm hearing too is, I'm a big believer in intentionally practicing gratitude, because I believe the energy that you put out is going to attract more of what you're experiencing. I do believe in that. Right. I think it's a very real thing. I know there's science around it now that establishes that. So it's almost like what I'm hearing you say is that if I can create that experience, like say, for example, just with my brothers, prior to even having a ranch, it might even make the ranch more likely to happen because I'm already experiencing that very emotion and going through that thing, right? And so that's going to like begets like. The other thing that I'm thinking about though is, the other thing that you're making me think of is, if a trip to a cabin in Wyoming is now 4 months out, right? That why is actually more motivating to work in the business and make things happen financially than it is than actually the ranch in 10 years.
Yes.
Right. Cause it's like, it's right there. I can taste it. It's like, I'm almost there anyway. So yeah, like that why for that extra, and maybe this is running counter exactly what you're saying now, which is, standards and don't have to work 24/7, but I'm saying like that why seems so much more real, so much more emotionally visceral, that it's 4 months out. And, I'm about to make this happen.
Well, and I'm sure you've heard about reticular activating system and what's in the forefront of your brain, right? So now you've got this thing in the forefront of your brain. Now you have the experience in the forefront of your brain, and you're walking through the grocery store and you overhear a guy saying, yeah, you know what? Within the next year or two, we're going to sell our 40-acre ranch that we have in such and such because my uncle passed away or whatever. You're like...
Right.
Right. So that reticular activating system and law of attraction, or whatever you want to call it, right? You're going to find more opportunities and get there closer than you're going to get there sooner to that experience than if you didn't dip your toe in now and experience that. And I think that goes with anything, whether I'm relating it to one day I'll have my finances together and my business together, and then I'll spend time with my family and my kids. Yours is more of, once I make a certain amount of income and I can buy the ranch, then I'll call up my brothers.
Got it.
Because now I'm at a point where I feel totally deserving to be able to provide for them.
That makes a lot of sense. It would almost seem like the ranch is a substitute for my self-worth. Like if it's this big, amazing thing, then now I'm worthy. Whereas maybe I feel like I haven't always been the best example, so I'm trying to make up for that. That's really interesting. That's really powerful.
Yeah.
Before we got into the interview, you were talking about how people totally underestimate what they can do in 5 years. I think you said, but overestimate what they can do in a year. Like today's 2019, I'm gonna do everything I ever wanted. Man, I don't know if I'm like on the precipice of a midlife crisis myself, and I've been joking about this with my girlfriend, but it's like I'm thinking about like, man, time flies. Whoa. And I'm like, I feel like I was here last year just a few days ago, and it's been 12 months, and these 12-month cycles, they move fast. Why do you think people think like that they can get everything done in a year? And why are you such a big proponent of the 12-week year? So let's talk a little bit about that and get into some of the tactics or the dirt of it, starting to implement a little bit of this.
Sure. So when we talked about the capacity in the day before vacation mode, right?
Which is the best get things done plan ever.
It's amazing.
Day before vacation.
Right? And why is that?
A real deadline. I don't know.
A deadline.
Real deadline. You are on an airplane. You're on a beach. You're going to be drinking, whatever. Like you're gone. Like you're just a real deadline.
So you have a deadline and there's a reward after it too, right?
That's a good point. Yeah. But what's the worst is the Friday deadline that you don't hit, and then you're working all weekend, and then you have this miserable weekend where it's not fully play, but it's not fully work. And you repeat those over and over again.
Right. No, I love it. So the 5 years and 12 months and the 12-week thing, I think in 5 years, I mean, if you literally opened up your planner or your gratitude journal or any type of documentation you have from 5 years ago, and you look where you're at now, most of us who are achievers, and that's what most of us are if we're at this summit or we're on this call, right?
That's right.
We're like, I can't believe I got from there to here in 5 years. Like, I've done a ton. Like, but at that point, if you go back to your mindset, you would never think that you're where you're at, right? In most cases, I can't say all, but most cases. So we underestimate our abilities over 5 years. And that's what that book, The Five, talks about. If you've never seen it, and if you're like me and you're just a driver and you want to watch a 4-minute video on YouTube, it's called The Five, where you be 5 years from today. And it's just adorable book, talking about thinking big, and talks about the Sistine Chapel was built in 5 years. I mean, like, just all sorts of good stuff. But, you know, you've got to have those long-term visions, like the ranch, which is great, but also the short-term ones. And when we're in goal-setting mode, we are in that positive mindset, like the sky's the limit. Like, I've got 12 full months, right? And we're not planning on
no pressure, no stress.
Right, no pressure.
Kumbaya.
Like, so when May comes and you're like, oh, I'm a little bit behind, that's okay, because August, I'm going to kick ass, right? So you're like, I'm going to be able to make it up. And it enables you to put off, you know, what you're doing.
Yeah.
So whereas if you do the 12-week year, you really understand your capacity. Because let's just say your parents are having a 40th wedding anniversary or something that you have to go to for 4 days. You know exactly when that is. You're going to have a trip with your brothers. You're going to be gone for 4 days. You know when that is. So you can make just a smaller plan, get rid of annualized thinking. And what he says in the book is every 12 weeks is a new year. So you know on New Year's Day how you feel. It's a fresh new beginning. You've closed the door on 2018. It's now 2019. You're a totally different person than you were on December 31st, right?
Right.
And so,
of course, yes.
If we could recreate that every 12 weeks, how much more could we get done?
I see what you're saying.
Because you know your capacity based on your environment, based on what's going on. So the other thing they do is they focus down, kind of like Gary Keller does in the One Thing book, which I'm a huge fan of Gary. He says, you know, what's the one thing that if you focused on just that and mastered that first, it would lift everything else up, and everything else would flow into that, right?
Right.
And so the first time I read the 12-week year, the one thing that I just simplified and said, if I mastered this in the next 8 to 12 weeks, it would change my world. And it's exactly what you brought up. You said you do the Miracle Morning. How long have you done that?
Unbroken, today's day 57.
Okay. So
and then my longest stretch was 103 or 104. And then I'll go through spurts. But this time, it's a commitment. So I don't know why I have to say this, but a couple of years ago, I set a commitment to do something for 18 months, and I did it for 18 months. And literally the last week of the 18th month, I stopped, and like my body broke down. But I did a physical workout pursuit for 18 months, like this lifting program, and it was got in the best shape of my life. And because of the previous 3 years before that, I had been like start, stop, 2 months, stop, and it just never making progress. So I did 18 months and I just stuck to it. I was like, there's one thing I'm going to stick to for 12 months. And I said 18 months, it's going to be just one thing. And I did it. And then, so now this time around, my one thing for the next 18 months is the Miracle Morning.
Right.
So day 57.
Starting small and saying, I can do anything for 12 weeks.
Right.
And what I love about it is that if you focus on the activity and you're just consistent for the 12-week promise that you made to yourself, and say, I love this. If y'all want to write this down, see, I love shouting out to other coaches. I got this from Allison Crow.
Okay.
I'm going to experiment for the next 12 weeks with my Miracle Morning looking like this. At the end of 12 weeks, when I go into a new year, I'm going to evaluate and decide if I continue it that way or if I change it. But what happens is a lot of people don't see results by week 2 or week 3, or they forget and then they just ditch it, right? Yeah. So you get to May in that annual plan and you're like, well, this isn't working out, and you ditch it, right? And it's like, it probably could have if you did it a little bit more micro, to where I have a 12-week plan. What what could I do week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and you plan out the 12 weeks. And they always say to do like a little day off or a getaway, like retreat at the end of each 12 weeks. So you can just refresh, clear your mind, and see what the next 12 weeks will bring you. So what I thought was fascinating was, if you could imagine being born into this world, going through school, and only being shown a 12-week calendar, new year, 12 weeks, new year, 12 weeks, new year, 12 weeks, and you did this planning your entire life, how much further ahead would you be than this? I've got the whole year for this annual plan. I mean,
yeah, because a part of having the whole 12 months is that you don't get after it as quickly, right? You don't use your capacity, I think is what you're saying. You don't start tapping into your capacity, and you don't start using it out of the gate because you feel like you've got 12 months.
You got a whole, right.
Yeah.
So personal experience, what I have found, and it's maybe just the way I think, is I found that, well, if it works for 12 weeks, why wouldn't it work for 8 weeks or 14 weeks? So I usually choose, I'm going on vacation on this date. I only have 8 weeks. So I make an 8-week year. The next one might be, my daughter's birthday or her graduation party. I have 14 weeks between now and then.
Right.
So I do life events for whatever reason, even if it's just my birthday. Like,
what's interesting is that everybody knows the power of 8 weeks, because it's usually about 8 to 6 weeks before vacation that you go on a diet. Right. No, think about it. It's so true. Right?
Right.
A lot of us, most of us, maybe a lot of us, it's like we're dieting for the vacation. And when do we start it? Usually drop dead is 6 weeks out, usually, right? Usually it's like 2 months. Okay, I've got 2 months. I still have time. Right. And then you just get after it. You're working out like
this weekend, but we're going to start next weekend.
Yeah. And so it's like we instinctively know the power, the difference that 6 weeks can make.
Right.
For some reason, we don't stick to it. We don't treat it that way. And you're saying it's because if we keep it using annualized thinking as our primary mental frame for how we see making progress in our life, if we use that as the timeline, we're always going to just keep kicking the can down the road. And then you get to August or September or whatever, and now you're way behind. What happens, right? We just throw the baby out with the bathwater. We throw it in, and we're
you're like, oh, this plan didn't work, but I'm still doing good because I did better than I did last year.
Right. And I'll try to write it out best I can. And next year is when I'm going to do it. Right.
Right.
And usually it's around October that you start hearing the next year thinking.
Yep. Because they've already ditched their plan for this year.
Yet there's still 90 days left even in October. 12 weeks.
Yeah. So these deadlines are just too far off. They're too far off. It's important to have the 5-year vision and have clarity so that you're on the right freeway.
That's like your compass. Your due north. Generally speaking, you want to be moving due north.
Right. Right.
Got it.
So a lot of agents, they're like, oh, this person's doing 80 units and, then they did 120. Like, I want to be them. And it's like, okay, well, why do they want that? Do they want the 150 units because that's what our industry is painting success to look like? Or do they want to net $250,000 a year working 35 hours a week and actually seeing their family? Because there's another path to that. You don't need to do 150 units to get that. And so, that's what sets me on fire in this business, is that when I got in, that's what success was painted to be. And I ran my ass off and I was a hustler and, I did all of those things and I grew a team and I had someone on a W-2 and all of this stuff that I probably didn't need, but that's the path that was paved for me instead of me sitting back and thinking for myself. And I agree with not reinventing the wheel. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but that's where Hank, Avink, and 36 to Life, all of that comes in. Yes, I coach agents that do more than 36 deals a year. They're netting what they want to net, and we're helping other people have opportunities, but we're not creating that schedule and all of that responsiveness. We're actually having standards and values. So we're about the net life, and this clarity is such a huge piece of that. It's like, well, why do you want to do 75 units? What's behind the $150,000 you want to make, right? How else could we make that to where you're not having to answer this every 5 freaking seconds at your kid's birthday party?
Right.
That's where I'm at,
Talk about when you get a new client as a real estate agent that's working with you, right? And they just come in and start working with you. Talk a little bit about what's possible. And I know this might be hard to answer, maybe it's
Okay.
not. What's possible in the first 12 weeks?
What's
Like what
possible?
what are some things that have been able to, what are some results or outcomes or changes that you've been able to see in your clients in their first 12 weeks of working with you?
I think the first 12 weeks, what I feel I hear the most and get the most reward out of seeing happen
Mm-hmm.
is that they do understand that people will still work with them, even if they don't respond immediately. There's a
Right.
transition in mindset with that, right?
Okay.
And that they can have that schedule. Mostly what I work on is the schedule and standards and respecting yourself, and then getting that clarity of where you're going. But also just giving permission of like, Jacqui Bowman, I'm going to still get that 250 a year, 35 hours a week. What are all the ways that I can do that and still be happy? And getting clarity within that is going to help you years to come,
Gotcha.
So I really dive into the clarity and why they're doing it. We work on schedule and breathing room. A lot of times when I get agents, Jacqui, I missed 3 calls. I didn't follow up with these leads. I forgot my kid at school yesterday. Like, those are my people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me help you, right? So, yeah.
A little bit. I want to dig in a little bit more about contamination because I know that there's a lot of and I'm really so happy, excited you brought that up because I feel like there's a lot of content, books, podcasts, blogs, coaching materials that talk a lot about doing things and adding things on, like doing these new actions, doing these new habits, adding these things on. But only of lately have I been hearing more thoughts, more content, and more awareness be directed at how about just removing some of the negative things in your life that just by default, they're like sandbags on your hot air balloon, right? And if you just cut a few of those, just by default, you're already doing enough to grow, right? Like hidden constraints, right, in your life.
Yeah.
And we're all chasing the symptoms. We're all trying to play whack-a-mole with the symptoms, but you never actually deal with but if you just could deal with the root cause, your symptoms, they go away, right? What are some of the most insidious and sneaky contagions of contamination that you find in your clients' lives?
I think, I hate to keep going back to the phone, but it's our business. And I think that's the absolute worst thing. The sneaky thing, when you say, maybe it's just not as a parent, but, and I know we've probably heard this before, but as humans, we love to solve problems.
Okay.
Our ego is fed by solving problems and being needed, right? So what happens with our phone is that anytime someone pings this, it's like, oh my gosh, someone needs me, right? Like in my head.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I look at it and I'm like, oh, okay. And I answer really quick and I'm like, ching. And what Simon Sinek says is that is dopamine, right?
Got it. Right.
So then we get on this. So I would say the sneakiest thing is that we don't realize that it's not the phone's fault. It's our addiction to the dopamine and fixing problems that gets us caught and stuck.
Got it.
So another way I like to explain it is that, and with my clients, like going back to your previous question, one of my clients, when she first started with me, we nailed down, okay, out of everything you want over the next 12 weeks, these are the 3 things that if you absolutely got them done every day, you would be winning, right? She's like, yeah. I said, we added them up. It was like an hour and 45 minutes of stuff. Like if you were working to capacity, how long would it take you? She's like, an hour and 45 minutes. Okay. What I want you to do is I want you to do this. She chose 8:30, which is fine. 8:30 to 11 or 8:30 to 10 or whatever it was. And I said, from 11 o'clock forward, I want you right now to go in your schedule and wipe everything off. I want you to have nothing to do in the afternoon and just do that. I said, if you go get a pedicure at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, You do not need to feel guilty. You can give yourself permission because you already have done what's in your inside world that's important. And then you can open it up to the outside world and do whatever they ask you to do. Whoever pings you, you can answer. You can go get that whole addiction and dopamine fix of pleasing everybody else after you've done the hour and a half. And we've heard this explained all different ways, right?
Right.
Get your most important stuff done first. But I have this visual in my head of, you know what? I'm Jacqui Bowman and I'm going to create my perfect world. So if my world was perfect 15 months from now, my perfect day, it would be that I get all of my stuff done first. And then I have the freedom to do whatever I want in the afternoon. The big myth is that you can't have that right now, but you can, right? It just takes a little standard and discipline and realizing things are what they are, you know? And it's the small micro decisions that when you get clarity. So for example, I said, okay, this is my ideal schedule. I work from 7:30 in the morning until 10. And then from 10 to 11, I do some social media videos and things like that. But if I go to get my teeth cleaned and they're like, Jacqui, the next appointment 6 months from now is July 7th at 9 a.m. Your natural instinct is like, sure. But once you've made the decision that you have standards, I'll say something like, well, do you have something in the afternoon? Because I cannot let something like that derail my inner world. Then after, 11 a.m., I open myself up to the outer world and let them come in. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I'm hearing a strong theme of when you have clarity on the different areas of your life, on why it is that you want what it is that you say you want, and you're able to brainstorm and list out the different ways you could be experiencing those whys now on a smaller scale, and putting it into a 12-week thinking instead of 12-month thinking, right? 12-week year. Kind of an underlying theme that I've heard in all of that, and you've said it multiple times, is setting standards. That clients will continue to work with me even if I'm not available every 5 minutes at a birthday party. I don't have to be available at 9 o'clock at night on the phone. Can you talk a little bit more specifically about the importance of standards and what it can do for you, whether it's like freeing you up or making you feel empowered or respecting yourself? Because I think you said that as a phrase.
Absolutely.
I will respect myself and I will respect this or these standards, whatever, once I get there. Talk a little bit more about that.
So I think, and see, this is why clarity is such a broad, I feel like it's such a broad word, even though it's supposed to be focused, right? So not only do we get clarity on what our goals are, but when we get clarity on our values and our standards, and the way we can do that is we can say, who is my perfect client? What is my perfect day? What is my perfect schedule? What is my perfect relationship with my family? Once you get clarity in all of those areas, like we said, it helps with the micro decisions. A great example in real estate is if you get clarity on who your perfect client is, and then you get clarity on what you will not stand for in a perfect world, right? When someone asks you to cut your commission, you don't have to think. Right. Because you already have clarity on your standards. Now let's just hypothetically say you've never written this out of what your standards are on commission or your standards are for working with a client. Like, okay, maybe your personal standard is I'll cut my commission if it's over a 300,000 price point. But if it's under this amount, I won't. It doesn't matter what it is. It's going to be different for every agent.
Okay.
And the fact that our brokers try to tell us like what our standards are is beyond me. But just once you get clarity on that, you're good. So when that micro decision comes along and someone in the 125 range says, well, someone else said they would do it for 5% or 4% or whatever, you're already armed with your standards of how you're going to respond.
Got it.
Now, if you didn't have that clarity and you had to think in the appointment, what happens is you naturally will succumb to, I really need this listing. I really need this sale out of fear, contamination. I don't have any other business going on. Okay, Mr. Seller, I'll do it. And then what happens is our energy is off for the entire transaction because you had a standard that you didn't really know you had until you broke it.
Got it.
Which I think is huge. So, I mean, when you get clarity on your standards and you write all that out, the micro decisions you don't have to think, because the less we think, the better off we are. Let's just face it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So a lot of times when you're in a situation and your energy's off and you're dreading the call or you're dreading the situation, you have to ask yourself, what standard can I put in place and get clarity on so that next time I need to make a micro decision, I don't have to think. I just ground myself and move forward. Right?
Right.
So, so clarity, standards, values, what else? Just believing you deserve it. I think that's a hard one too, because it's that whole abundance versus scarcity mindset, especially if you don't have other business going on and someone offers that to you. You know, I think when you've got that ideal schedule, you've got that miracle morning and you're doing the activities, that breeds the abundance mindset. I think a lot of times when I'm not doing my activities or, you know, I feel like I'm behind because I skipped 2 days and then an opportunity comes that I should pass up out of fear because I wasn't doing my activities, I am more likely to bend on my standards. So I think that all, just the whole energy around all of it, it's like if you can be consistent, stick with your standards, your energy will always be up, you know, because everything you're working on should be good, right?
I feel like if you identify what your standards are, I think it's so powerful that what you said earlier, that if you get some standards violated that you didn't know that you had, your energy is going to be off for the rest of the time around that project, that transaction, those people, whatever it may be. I think that's very, very astute. I think that if you can do the work of identifying your standards and holding others accountable to them.
Right.
It's kind of weird, right? But you're holding others accountable to your standards. And obviously part of that's communicating that. Your responsibility is to communicate.
Just setting expectations in a nice way. I mean,
yeah, of course.
We're all in sales.
Right.
Sell yourself, right?
Right. But knowing those standards and setting them and keeping your life accountable to them, I should say, not necessarily others, but keeping your life accountable to them. I think you're going to start respecting yourself a lot more.
Right.
Right. And I think self-respect is something that's deeply lacking with entrepreneurs in general. And if I may, I think so with real estate agents.
I would say yes.
Because it's always chasing that dollar, the commission, because like you're saying, you do need the deal badly or whatever it is. And so there's and it's really, really hard to operate effectively when you lack self-respect, right?
Right. And I think clarifying the ideal schedule and clarifying the ideal client and clarifying what you have, and when you're behind goal financially, that's hard to stick to. Mm-hmm. But I think the first step is at least believing that this is what you want and this is why you want it, right?
Right.
And I think we get confused over, we got to get leads, we got to get deals, we got to get leads, we got to get deals, we got to get leads, we got to get deals. And truly, I'm fighting for the freedom for you to have happiness. I'm fighting for the freedom for you to say on your terms, that's when you're going to let the outside world come in and they're still going to come to you. But believing that because I'm doing my small activities for an hour and 45 minutes or 2 hours or 3 hours a day at capacity, if I'm doing that, that's the underlying foundation for abundance. You may be doing those activities for 3 months straight and get nothing. And we've all heard about the little tipping point, right?
Right.
But once you're doing those activities, what gets you through is you doing them so that you're not in that scarcity mindset. The minute we're like, well, I only did my activities twice this week, the next deal comes, you're in scarcity, you bend your standards, your energy's off. It's just a continuous. Yeah. And I feel like most agents are in that.
Yeah, you're in a vicious loop, right? It keeps replaying itself over and over and over again, a vicious cycle.
Right. But is it okay to cut your commission and go against your standard when you have no business? Sure. I mean, I had an agent just move from one brokerage to another, took 0 listings with them, needed immediate business. So how many signs did he have? He had 6 signs in his garage. He goes, I'm going after for sale by owners. If they're over the 250 price range, I'll list them at 1% on the list side. Because if I get 6 signs out, I'll have momentum. And then I'll go back to my standard of my full commission. He was in total control.
Got it. And he was aligned with and okay with the discount temporarily because
Correct.
There was a reason. He set an intention and he was okay with that energy.
Correct. Right. It wasn't someone else coming at him to bend his standards. So,
right.
So there are some things you can do to where you're still in control and you have clarity and, you know, you're.
Yeah, but that what you're saying right there is, I think, really, really insightful and powerful, is that feeling of like, I'm somewhat at least in control of all this. Right.
Right.
Versus getting into a mindset and a space where it's happening to you. You're a victim. You're being reactive. F these people. What the F is going on?
Right.
Why is it happening over and over again? What the shit?
Right.
You know what I mean? And everybody's out to get me. But, you know, wherever your head can warp into, and our mind is brilliant at coming up with every negative scenario, right? Because it's a survival mechanism first and foremost. Yeah, it's just, I think what you're saying is so, I don't want that to be just kind of glossed over. I want agents to really hear that, because creating some sense of like, okay, I'm choosing this, I'm creating this. It's going to be not what I want normally for the next 90 days or 6 months, but I'm going to choose it. I'm going to be okay with it because here's what it's going to get me. It just makes your energy better, makes your self-respect better. And I guess what I'm fundamentally trying to get at is the better your energy is, the better you're going to do with people, because people really, really, really smell and sense energy.
I always say people are not buying what you're selling. They're buying your energy.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
Right.
Yeah, I would not disagree with that.
So, you know, just anything we can do to get clarity around how do I keep my energy up? If I work at capacity, I mean, even if right now you work at capacity for an hour and a half, how proud are you when you're done?
Right.
That feeds energy. I go to a listing, someone tries to cut my commission. I internally in my heart already know what I'm going to say because I respect my own standards, like you said. Mm-hmm. They're like, okay, sounds good, Jacqui. And they list anyway. Energy, right?
Right.
Or you know what, we're going to need to think about it. And you leave there and you say to yourself, if he doesn't list, and this is your subconscious mindset, I've been doing my activities so consistently, someone else is going to call me tomorrow. And a lot of people refer that as to next, you know, like if they don't do it next, you know, but truly, if you're doing your activities, you'll stick to that abundance mindset and you can stick to your standard. So cool.
And I bet if you're congruent at a cellular level, right? Mm-hmm. That's kind of the way I hear what you're saying in your subconscious. If I'm congruent at a cellular level around my activities, my values, my intention, then even the way I communicate to that client in that meeting or that potential opportunity in that conversation will go a long ways towards maybe actually winning that business or not winning it, based upon, you know, whether I'm upset, bitter.
Based on your energy of if you're feeling like you have to defend.
Right.
Or that's just who you are.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely love that.
Yep.
What's a question that you wish agents asked you more often about mindset and getting clarity that you don't hear them ask often enough?
Ooh, that's a good one. You know, I don't even know. I don't even know. I'm like, what is a question that I don't think they ask?
What's one thing that you wish every agent understood and knew about getting clarity?
That they could write their own story of success.
Okay.
I think just the word freedom, freedom from what you know, we all got into real estate because we thought we were going to have freedom. Right. And then many agents get into real estate and they realize quickly if they're having quick success, how much of their freedom is stolen. Right. And they can have that back. And when I say stolen, it's really what they gave away. Right. And so to understand that you can write your own story And a lot of drivers and business owners and entrepreneurs, it's like all of this vision stuff is fluff, but it's really not. It's like really write your story of who you are and what you want. And then as opportunities come into your world, you're going to respond correctly and things will be in alignment with what you want. I know that when my kids were 6 and 8 years old and I was a single mom gone from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and then doing paperwork till 1 a.m., that was not the life I signed up for, but that's where I ended up for a solid 6 or 7 years.
Gotcha.
Till I started to realize I do have control. It didn't need to go that way. And so many of my clients, it's like, what's your story of success? And I really dig deep, kind of like I did with you. Well, why do you want to do 100 units? Why do you want this? And figure out what they really want behind it is masked by what our industry paints success to look like. And I'm just here to tell you there's a better way. And it's going to be different for each person that coaches with me. But you can't get anywhere until you rewrite the stories of where you're going.
Right.
So, yeah.
Tomorrow morning you wake up and you have the power to install a piece of software into every real estate agent's brain. Okay. It's like a mental operating system update. And what this piece of software is going to do is it's going to help the agent be 100% consistent moving forward with 3 specific habits. Okay. You get to choose those habits. What are those habits for every real estate agent to be consistent with moving forward? So what would you say are the 3 core habits that, you know, if every real estate agent started sticking to them and following them, overall, it would certainly raise the likelihood of success, happiness, fulfillment, and net profit for them in their business?
The first one would be, if there was an app part of the system, it would be, the first question would be, what do I have to do today in my inner world for my family, myself, and my business, being in a proactive mode before I open up the control to the outside world? So in a sense, people say, make a to-do list for the day, right? I would want to reframe that as, when I'm blocking out the outside world and I'm working on my inside world, what are those growth activities that I need to do in order to move me forward with my family, move me forward in my business, move me forward with my health, right?
Right.
What are those priority things, right? So I would say if there was a light switch that you could turn on and off, like, I'm going to turn off the outside world for 2 hours and 35 minutes until my inside world is taken care of. And then I'm great for everyone else who needs me.
Gotcha.
And if they can actually turn this off for those 2 hours and 35 minutes, they're golden. So that'd be one.
Okay.
That was a complicated one.
That's a good one, though. I summarize it as inside world, outside world.
Yes.
Take care of your inside world and everything that it impacts around your intention and clarity before letting the outside start to show up and interrupt.
Right. And I think just empowering agents with knowing that they control the switch of when that thing goes on.
Yeah, they really do. It really does have an off button or even a silent airplane mode button. It really
Mine's
does.
always on silent.
Yeah, I love it.
Yep. What are 2 other things? I would say definitely gratitude. I think you either mentioned that before our call or during our call, but, you know, just having gratitudes and wins, you know, just writing down gratitudes and wins. And I would say the 12-week year tool, like always referring to your plan and your activities. Is that 3?
That is 3. That is 3. Inside world before the outside world. Gratitude and wins, writing them down, right? Practicing a daily awareness, cultivating a daily awareness of them, and then using the 12-week tool, the 12-week year tool.
Yep, absolutely.
Absolutely love that. Jacqui, tell us a little bit about what people are going to get in the free gift. You have a clarity and confidence, like a 30-minute planning brainstorm. Tell us a little bit about what's in it, what they're going to get with it, and then I'll let them know how they can go get it.
Yeah, so I'll try to summarize it really quickly. When you have your 12-week goals, or even if right now you're still on an annual plan and your goal is to, I like shorter term goals. So I'm going to take 6 listings in the next 4 weeks. That's a short-term goal, right? So you write that at the top, and then you're going to brainstorm all the different ways that you personally could get the 6 listings, not what the agents around you are doing, not what your broker thinks you should do, not what you think you should do. I want you to rewrite the story of where you have connections, where you have talent. And it's a brainstorm, which I love, because a brainstorm is just ideas. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, what we do is we use the 80-20 rule, and we go through and we highlight everything that we are certain would give us results. Okay. Might not be so enjoyable, but we're certain would get us results. Mm-hmm. And then I usually I'm a colorful person. So then I'll take a highlighter of a happier color, and I would highlight the things that would bring me joy and connect with my soul in my prospecting for those, right? Okay. And I would study those and decide, okay, I have 4 weeks. In order for me to get 6, I'd probably have to do these activities my first 2 weeks. And what it does is it gives you clarity on a really short-term goal and short-term plan.
Gotcha. Okay. Love it. For those of you who are watching, you click on a link below. It'll say Jacqui's free gift, and the hyperlink will say clarity and confidence now. So click on that, and it'll take you directly to the landing page where you can enter your email address to get this free gift from Jacqui and be able to start using it right now.
Right away. Right?
Yeah. And since you're here, you know what that means. Well, if you're here all the way to the end of this session, that means this episode was resonating with you and it was making an impact on you and you wanted to listen to more of it. So now that we're here, and unfortunately this has to come to an end, what doesn't have to come to an end is your experience and journey with Jacqui. And again, you can click on the link to her free gift below and start getting clarity and confidence now, which, as you've heard, is very, very important and vital to your happiness, your fulfillment, your success. And so again, go do that now. Just start using it. I don't think it's going to take very long. I think the headline says 30 minutes. It won't take very long to start using it. Yeah. So go put in your email address, download it, and just use it. And also, I think it's very, very appropriate that if you got anything out of this session that made an impact on you or answered questions for you, reach out to Jacqui and let her know. Just say thank you. Let her know what difference this interview made in your business or in your life. If you use the Clarity and Confidence free tool, use it. And if you get anything out of that, tag Jacqui on Facebook or reach out to her and say thank you. These speakers are like Jacqui. These speakers are showing up and they're giving a lot. They're giving it away for free, and all to make an impact here. And so I know that if this made a difference for you, a thank you and an acknowledgement goes a long way.
Thank you so much. If I helped one person today, it would make me excited. So,
well, awesome. You helped me.
Well, good.
So one is down.
There we go. One's down.
Check.
Right.
Now
awesome.
Maybe you helped 2 people.
I love it.
I'm sure you did. Jacqui, on behalf of myself and the summit, thank you so much for showing up today and for giving and for being you.
Thank you.